Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. It's a free-for-all today on the phones. The number 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. I hope you got blue skies wherever you are. It is a good weekend shaping up around here. You can follow me on social media at EW Erickson, pretty much anywhere, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, you name it. Happy to engage with you. Had a great time last night doing the Bourbon and Butts event, my annual fundraiser for Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. Had some great crowds show up. I'm doing an event at the Governor's Gun Club for all of my listeners, wherever you are. If you want to get to Atlanta, the Governor's Gun Club is the largest indoor skeet shooting facility in the country. There will be a bourbon tasting. You don't have to be a bourbon drinker. You can just come, hang out. We're going to have some guests I've invited to come. We've got politicians reaching out, begging to come. No. I'm very selective in who I want to be on stage with me to talk about the races you'll be interested in. And you're welcome as a participant to come. All you do is text the word bourbon to 33777, buy a ticket and come. You do not have to be a bourbon drinker. There will be lots of opportunities for you to hang out, see the gun range, visit with me. It's a really cool place. Now, we got to move into the headlines. This is going to be painful for some people out there, probably not for you listening, but this is going to be painful for some people listening. They're going to struggle to come to terms with this. Joe Biden was caught on a hot mic the other day in Florida saying nobody F's with the Bidens. The problem is that's what OPEC is doing. OPEC is driving up the price of a barrel of oil. OPEC is cutting out its oil production by 2 million barrels a day. The price of a barrel of oil is now over $92. Yesterday, when I closed out my program, it was at $87. The day before, it was at $85. Brent crude is now at $98. It is up 3.88%. West Texas crude up 4.53%. It is headed back to $100 a barrel. Joe Biden has decimated American energy production. He has made it possible for OPEC to put us over the proverbial barrel. Fox News is now reporting the Biden administration is nearing a decision on the future of federal offshore fossil fuel drilling and has not ruled out a complete block on new leases. The Biden administration, according to the Wall Street Journal, has issued fewer new leases for drilling on federal land than any administration since World War II. Joe Biden has enabled OPEC to fundamentally alter the economic landscape of the United States. Russia is on the verge of a nuclear attack in Ukraine, if reports are to be believed. Its major nuclear submarine has left port in the Baltic. Rail cars with nuclear missile launchers have headed towards Ukraine. This is the first time since the 1960s the Russians have openly threatened a nuclear attack on anyone. And it must be pointed out, none of this happened when Donald Trump was president. For 4 years, Democrats told us Donald Trump was going to destabilize the world. The world was going to go to hell in a handbasket. The reality is that's what Joe Biden has done, whether they want to believe it or not. Joe Biden has brought the world to the brink of nuclear war and economic calamity, not Donald Trump. Joe Biden is the one who was so predictable, so naive, and so out to lunch on foreign policy that Vladimir Putin could play him like a fiddle to the brink of Armageddon. Joe Biden is the one who was so predictable, so out to lunch, and so held hostage to the left-wing cult of environmentalists that OPEC knows they can get him over a barrel and drive up gas prices, and all the Democrats can do is scream that they're trying to help MAGA Republicans with this. All of this was foreseeable. Joe Biden is playing checkers, and the rest of the world has learned chess. Joe Biden is getting his clock cleaned with foreign policy, and the Democrats promised us it was Donald Trump who was in over his head on foreign policy. None of this happened when Donald Trump was president of the United States. You may not like him. You may think he had poor character. You may think he wasn't fit to serve as president, but nobody was talking about nuclear war in reality when Donald Trump was president. Nobody cared what OPEC was doing when Donald Trump was president. The Russians didn't invade Ukraine when Donald Trump was president because they knew Donald Trump was too unpredictable for them to figure out what the hell he might do. So they didn't do it. OPEC never bothered with Donald Trump when he was president because Donald Trump unleashed the floodgates of American energy from Alaska to Texas, across the nation. We were drilling our own oil. We were mass exporting our oil. We were energy independent, and now we're held hostage to a bunch of Muslim dictators in the Middle East who know they can have their way with us because Joe Biden has closed up shop, shut down the oil industry, threatened to bully them out of business, curtailed leases, and now we have nothing unless you're rich enough to buy a battery-powered car and, in the words of the energy secretary, run on sunshine. None of this happened when Donald Trump was president, and you know it's true, and you may hate that it's true, but it absolutely is gospel truth. None of this happened when he was president. Joe Biden and the left's chickens are coming home to roost, to quote their friend Jeremiah Wright. Joe Biden has been wrong about everything in foreign policy for 50 years. Don't ask me, ask Bob Gates, Barack Obama's defense secretary. Joe Biden's wrong about everything and has been for 50 years. The man does not understand foreign policy and is too dumb to realize it. He thinks he's a genius when he's not. Joe Biden withdrew us from Afghanistan when everyone around him said, do not do this in fighting season. If you want to do it, because Donald Trump wanted to do it, wait until the winter season like Donald Trump wanted to do. And Joe Biden decided to do the exact opposite of Donald Trump because he has such disdain for Donald Trump and the Republicans. He thought he could do better, and it cost the life of 13 Americans, and there are still Americans trapped in Afghanistan. On store shelves across the United States today, there is still a baby formula shortage, and you have no major media outlet wants to report on it because they're afraid of hurting the Democrats. There is still a baby formula shortage, and Joe Biden promised it would get fixed. It is not fixed. I hear from parents every day. They're still struggling to find baby formula. And then there's OPEC. Oil prices are going back up, which means gas prices will go back up. And the best the Democrats can do is blame the Republicans and the Saudis and claim they're complicit together to help MAGA Republicans along with Russia. They're back to their Russian conspiracy throwing the election, and they cannot admit, and the media will not point out, that what's actually going on here is that Joe Biden caused the problem. Joe Biden broke the economy. Joe Biden enabled and emboldened Vladimir Putin. Joe Biden has brought the world to the brink of nuclear Armageddon because Joe Biden is a weak president, a weak leader, and has stupid foreign policy and listens to a bunch of nonprofit academics who've never had to get a job in the real world, and they have led this country and the entire world to the brink of a nuclear war where Joe Biden last night to Democratic donors said this is the closest we've ever been to nuclear Armageddon since the Cuban Missile Crisis, a situation that did not exist when Donald Trump was president. When you hold your babies close to you tonight and worry, will there be a nuclear war? You need to understand this didn't happen under Donald Trump. When you go to the pump tomorrow and you see gas prices have gone up because OPEC decided to cut production, you need to understand this didn't happen under Donald Trump. This is not in praise of Donald Trump because any Republican president would be in the same boat. Because Republican presidents understand if we give up our energy independence, we become held hostage to people who do not share our values and have our interests. Any Republican president would have avoided walking into this trap. Joe Biden walked in willfully, and now his administration is attempting to use a crisis they created to not let it go to waste and force you to go buy a battery-powered car that you can't buy. Across Florida, the battery-powered cars are igniting spontaneously because the salt from the storm and the hurricane has corroded the batteries, and they're catching fire. And firefighters who would preserve to be rescuing people and finding the bodies of the dead are having to put out the fires of the battery-powered cars that have been abandoned because of the storm and can't be refueled with gas and now have no power to charge them. That's the vision of Joe Biden's future. We're on the brink of nuclear Armageddon for the first time since the 1960s because Joe Biden is president, because Joe Biden is implementing foreign policy that he said would be better. The Russians were more than willing to run to Ukraine and now more than willing to send in nuclear weapons and more than willing to challenge Joe Biden for primacy on the world stage because Joe Biden is a weak know-nothing who claims to know everything and lacks any bit of humility to understand he has screwed it up. Joe Biden is so clueless, he says nobody F's with the Bidens, and the whole world is. And the problem for you and me is that we're left to the fallout. We're left to the catastrophe. We're left to the damage. We're left to the debris. The Democrats want you to go buy your battery-powered car. You can't afford to buy a battery-powered car because have you seen what your grocery bill is? You're still paying on your gas-powered car, and what they've decided to do is drive up the cost of gas so much that you're going to go broke. And the way they're going to bail you out is to give you some sort of government subsidy to buy your battery-powered car that you can't drive because the power's out in California. The electric grid is unstable. They've made it vulnerable to hackers from abroad. And we're on the verge, if a nuclear weapon explodes in Ukraine, of an absolute economic meltdown around the world. At a time the Fed is having to raise interest rates to slow down inflation that is gutting you, gutting your family, carving out your pocketbook, making mincemeat of it. The Biden administration has no solution other than spend more, which will do nothing but exacerbate inflation, exacerbate interest rates, raise the amount of money that must be paid just to level off the national debt, and make the service payments on the debt, which means less money for the social welfare net, less money for government spending, less money for anything other than covering the national debt, including less money to build up our military at a time we need it built up. Joe Biden has restricted the amount of oil flowing from the United States. Joe Biden caused this hostage situation. We are hostage to Middle Eastern dictators and the Russians who wish to raise prices around the world to benefit Russia in its war with Ukraine. At a time Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, Jennifer Granholm, the Democratic Party at large has told you you're not allowed to get any more oil out of the ground that you yourself own, you yourself could have access to. It is Joe Biden, not Donald Trump, who has promoted the tyrants over the Texans, the autocrats over the Alaskans, and the dictators over the Dakotans. It is Joe Biden who has emboldened Vladimir Putin to move nuclear weapons towards Ukraine, not Donald Trump. It is under Joe Biden that Vladimir Putin knew he could go invade Ukraine because Joe Biden was a predictable fool as opposed to an irascible, unpredictable madman like Donald Trump. You may not like Donald Trump. You may think Donald Trump is a terrible person. You may hate Donald Trump's character. But according to Joe Biden, the world for the first time since the 1960s is on the verge of nuclear Armageddon at a time OPEC has us over a barrel and oil prices are going back up to $100 a barrel. And all of that is on Joe Biden. He did that, not Donald Trump. Maybe you should consider Joe Biden is not the return to normalcy so many of you thought he was. So winter is coming, and I got to tell you, I love the weight of the Bull and Branch sheets. I like them in the summer when it's hot and you don't want a lot of covers on you, but in the wintertime, they're just the perfect weight, the perfect, smoothness. They're 100% organic cotton threads. They've got super softness. They get softer every time you wash them. They're just, the drape when you're laying down and stuff, they're just perfect sheets. I love them. I am effusive with my praise for Bull and Branch, and I'm delighted to have them as an advertiser. Look, they're made from the highest quality threads. They got superior softness. They got over 25,000 rave customer reviews and counting. I'm one of them. The quality you can tell is great. They hold up well after all the washes I've put them through, and they just get softer. It doesn't matter what the thread count is if the fiber sucks, and you can tell they put a lot of great detail into the fibers they use. And look, Bull and Branch gives you a 30-night risk-free trial with free shipping, returns on all orders. You're going to feel the difference. You're not going to want to send them back. The first 100% organic, fair trade, certified bedding company ever. They use 90% less water than conventional production, zero pesticides, other toxic chemicals. They don't use them. It's just fantastic. Listen, I'm effusive with my praise. I love Bull and Branch. Try them for yourself. And again, you get a 30-night risk-free trial, free shipping, returns on all orders. Try the sheets that will make you fall for the coziest night's sleep in the season where you want cozy sheets. 15% off your first set of sheets. Free shipping when you use promo code ERIC, E-R-I-C-K, at bullandbranch.com. That's Bull and Branch, B-O-L-L-A-N-D branch.com. The promo code is ERIC. Trust me, they're worth it. We've got 5 bedrooms, 5 beds, Bull and Branch sheets on every bed. Hello there. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. It is a free-for-all on the phones today. The phone number is 877-973-7425. It is very notable that Joe Biden told Democratic donors, not the world, not the policymakers, not a think tank. He told Democratic donors that, quote, "We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis. We are trying to figure out what is Putin's off-ramp. Where does he find a way out? Where does he find himself where he does not only lose face but significant power?" And they're trying to find off-ramps for Putin. This is not the sort of setting you deliver something like this to. It's not what presidents do. And in fact, the New York Times itself is calling Biden out for giving a speech like that to Democratic donors. And officials in Washington behind the scenes tied to the Biden administration are upset about it. And in fact, let me read you this. Contrary to Mr. Biden's comparison, American officials say they do not believe this moment is as fraught as the Cuban Missile Crisis, during which Mr. Kennedy declared a quarantine of Cuba to stop the delivery of nuclear weapons. The chances of Mr. Putin using an atomic weapon remain low, they have said, but they are worried about the Russian military doctrine that treats tactical weapons as a potential element of conflict between ground forces. Tactical weapons come in many sizes and varieties, most of which have a small fraction of the destructive power of the bombs the United States dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, but they're hard to use and difficult to control. Joe Biden gave that talk to Democratic donors. This is really important for you to understand. This is really, really, really important for you to understand. If Donald Trump had given a speech to Republican donors and told them we were on the brink of nuclear Armageddon, this is the closest we've come since the Cuban Missile Crisis, the national media would be in a meltdown frenzy today. From CNN to MSNBC, across newspapers and news organizations and newsrooms of America, there would be major denouncements of Donald Trump. They would be shoving microphones in Republicans' faces, demanding that they rebuke Donald Trump for suggesting the world was on the brink of nuclear war, that it was irresponsible to do to a group of donors. And they're largely giving Joe Biden a pass. The media that refuses to hold Joe Biden accountable is complicit in the degradation of the American nation. The media that refuses to hold Joe Biden accountable and ask the tough questions is a media that is exacerbating the problem because the Democrats know they can get away with things the media would never let Republicans get away with. And you know and I know damn well, because you lived through it, it was only 2 years ago that no Russian invasion of Ukraine happened when Donald Trump was president, and OPEC didn't screw around with us because they knew we were producing so much energy ourselves, there was nothing they could do to hurt us. But now everybody can do everything they want to the United States because when Joe Biden says nobody F's with the Bidens, he means everybody does, and you and I are the ones been overtaking it for him. That's just the truth, even if you don't like it. Now, let's talk about something more pleasant. I'm going to do a gathering of my listeners, a small one. We're going to start them in Kennesaw. We're going to do these. I'm going to do one in Orlando. We're going to spread around the country. This one is going to be bourbon tasting at the Governor's Gun Club, which is the largest indoor skeet shooting facility in the country. It's like a country club, like a golf club, but for guns. You are more than welcome to come. If you drink bourbon, obviously, they're not going to let you shoot guns, but you can come. You don't have to be a bourbon drinker. I'm going to have some friends there with me on stage talking about the closeout of the midterms. If you want tickets, text the word bourbon to 33777. Everybody's welcome to come. 33777 is the number. The keyword is bourbon. When you come back, I'm going to start taking your phone calls, 877-973-7425. Hello and welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Delighted to have you guys. Let's go to the phones. Rick, you're going to be up first. Welcome to the show, Rick.
Hey, Eric.
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So I just want to point out how ridiculous it is that they would be saying that OPEC is cutting production to try to hurt the Republicans in the midterms because that would be totally counter.
No. They're saying that OPEC is collaborating with the Republicans to hurt the Democrats.
Right, which is ridiculous because the Republicans want to drill.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to want to increase production and go to be energy independent. And that's going to be bad for OPEC. That's going to be bad for Russia. So
yeah, exactly. It absolutely is going to be bad for both of them. But of course, the Democrats don't let a good talking point stand in the way of the truth, or just let the truth stand in the way of good talking point. Rather, it makes no sense for them to say that. 877-973-7425. Brian, you're going to be up next. Welcome.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Eric.
Sure.
Hey, I was not a Trump supporter, right, until he won the primary, and the next thing I knew, I was on a Trump boat parade. The man was convincing, and I love what he did for our country. I say that because I'm curious, and I don't understand how we're not energy independent now versus then, when by the numbers, my understanding is we produce like 11.5 million barrels of oil or whatever a day under Biden and only 11.2 million under Trump. So by the numbers, it looks like we're producing more oil than we were under Trump. So how are we no longer energy independent?
Well, this is the fun Democratic sleight of hand. So I've got the chart pulled up from the U.S. Energy Information Association, which tracks the the barrels of oil produced. So at the end of what the Democrats like to say is actually Biden has in 2 years as president produced more oil, or in 1 year produced more oil than in 2 of the years of Trump's administration. That's true. In 1 year of Biden's administration and in his first year in office, produced more oil than 2 years of the Trump administration. But you have to look at the chart to understand why. In the final year of Barack Obama's administration, Barack Obama brought our oil production down to 8.8 million barrels of oil a day. What that equated to is 1985's levels. So in the first year of the Trump administration, he had to rev back up production. So he revved back up production in his first year in office and got us back to 1970 levels. We went from 8.8 to 9.3, which is where we were roughly in 1970 when Richard Nixon was president. And then from 2017 to 2018 got us back to 10.9. So we went from 8.8 at the end of the Obama administration to 10.9 after the full first year of Trump's administration, all the way up to 12.3. In other words, we went from 8.8 to 12.3. It took some time to get the pipes and the drilling to get it all up to speed. Had Donald Trump remained president, it would have gone up even higher. The problem is COVID hit in 2020. And we went from 12.3 down to 11.3. But where has Biden post-COVID gone? Down to 11.2. And actually in 2022, we're on the verge of slipping below 11,000. Why? Because it took Trump and the oil industry a couple of years to undo the damage of the Obama administration. Barack Obama got us down to less than 9,000 barrels a day. Really, I say 9. It's like 9 million barrels a day. Got us down. And it took investment under Trump to get us back to not just the 1970s levels, but to a record high. When Donald Trump was president, before COVID hit in 2019, the last year of oil production before COVID hit, when everything started shutting down, Donald Trump's administration, the American oil industry, was producing more oil domestically than at any time in American history. And then Joe Biden began shutting it back down. And it is on track to revert back to the levels of the 1970s and into the 1980s under Joe Biden. The Biden administration likes to use COVID and the ramp up post Barack Obama. Obama got us down so low. The Biden administration likes to say, well, we're producing more oil than Donald Trump did for most of his administration. Yes, because it took those first year and a half to get oil production ramped back up. And then COVID happened in 2020 and scaled it back down. He's benefiting from a sleight of hand on explanation and context of the chart to say he's doing more. But if you follow the trend lines out, he's bringing us back down domestically in ways that would not have happened under Donald Trump. What's so remarkable is it was actually the Bush administration where domestic oil production continued to decline. It had started in 1985, the oil production in the United States began to decline, in large part because of technology. We didn't have fracking at the time. When fracking started up, the Bush administration accelerated and expanded drilling around the country, and oil exploration began to spike until Barack Obama. And when Barack Obama got to 2015, he hit the brakes on domestic oil production as the climate change and Green New Deal efforts of the Democrats began to take shape, and he wanted to stop fossil fuel production, and they began to shut it down. He waited until his second term to start crippling the American economy. And now Joe Biden out of the gate has done the same thing. That's just the facts. You don't have to believe me. You can see the U.S. Energy Information Administration's chart yourself, EIA.gov. That's it. Go see it for yourself, and you can see it. And when you look at the dates, you understand, oh, Donald Trump, yes, his first year was low. They were revving back up from the Obama administration, and then that decline was COVID. And where has it gone since COVID? Down. Because Joe Biden does not want us dependent on ourselves. He wants us dependent on Middle Eastern dictators. Manuel, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good. I'm originally from Cuba, so I know about bad government from experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that said, if I were to line myself up with the party, I would line myself up with the libertarians. I'm more of a libertarian than I am anything else. Mm-hmm. But I never vote libertarian because my view on that is if I vote libertarian, then I'm really voting for the Democratic Party because I'm voting against the Republicans. Now, what I don't understand is what is the logic behind these people, 5 to 6% every election, voting libertarian? What's the point?
Okay.
I don't understand.
Manuel, so there are cranks in every state. And the cranks like to be heard, and the Libertarian Party in Georgia gives them a place to be heard. I got to tell you this, speaking of libertarians, let me play you. This was not a setup. I didn't know you were going to do this. This is the Senate candidate for the Libertarian Party in Arizona. Y'all listen to this.
We are a constitutional republic, not an unrestricted democracy. Today, everything is up for a vote. Very little should be up for a vote. Like, for example, who should represent the good people of the state of Arizona. That should be up for a vote. What should the age of consent be? This is something that reasonable minds disagree on. That should be up for a vote.
The age of consent should be up for a vote of the public. Really, there's what the Libertarian candidate in Arizona is arguing, that we should just put it up to popular vote as to what age it's appropriate to mess with kids. Really, that's your Libertarian Party these days. Back in the 1990s, Manuel, is the Speaker of the House in Georgia was a man named Tom Murphy. He saw the Republicans gaining ground in the state, so he gave the Libertarian Party ballot access, knowing that enough cranks in the Republican Party would start voting for the Libertarians if given that option, and it would draw Democrats and Republicans into a runoff where the Democrats would beat the Republicans. Well, over time, that shifted, and the Libertarian Party cranks started helping the Republicans, and so no one's ever bothered to change it in the state. They may draw Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock into a runoff, but the Libertarian Party doesn't actually win anything anywhere. The Libertarian Party now exists largely as a front for arguing about legal prostitution and legalized drugs. They used to be a serious party of small government people, and largely the National Libertarian Party itself is full of just cranks, fools, and people who are not libertarians but libertines. In some states where they have ballot access, they try to put up candidates. It tends to be the same candidate every single time, and they lose every single time, and it just drives up everybody else's costs and prolongs elections. That's what the Libertarians are good at, dragging out elections, making people have to deal with it way more when they get to a runoff. But if you're a crank and want to vote Libertarian, God bless you. It's your right as an American. You live in a great country. Back to the phones. Jim, you're going to be up next. Jim, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Well, listening to Mr. Biden's spouting off reminds me of the kind of thing that embarrasses everybody in the room, that in the takes one to know one department, a grumpy old man says, "Now, don't you talk to me like that, Sonny. I can still knock your block off." And everybody has to bite their lip and think, "Granddad, stop." And now I know I'm a grumpy old man, and if I wasn't working and exercising and still able to do that, I'd be a lot grumpier. Does Biden know that he's just really embarrassed himself? And
No, he doesn't.
That's what he sounds like?
Look, it's very clear to me, even his wife and those around him have some concerns when he goes wandering off on stage, but they prop him up because they've justified to themselves that he's not Donald Trump, and as long as he's there, Donald Trump stays away. It's all about stopping Donald Trump. It's not actually about advancing competence in the administration. It's not about competence in government. It's not about competence in the rule of law. And because he's a doddering old fool, let's just be honest about it, he's become a doddering old fool over time. His progressive administrators, who are all Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders acolytes, can rule the roost. Joe Biden is not, at the end of the day, a man without faculty, and a lot of us like to stereotype him as that. I do think he's a doddering old fool, but I do think at the end of the day, he's calling the shots. Now, some of you disagree with me, but let me explain. The way Joe Biden operated in the United States Senate is that his chief of staff would narrow down all of the options to two, and then present Joe Biden with two options. That's the way a lot of the old school senators operated. That's exactly how he's running the administration, except he has Ron Klain, his chief of staff, serving as a prime minister who narrows the options down to two options, both of which Ron Klain likes, and tells Joe Biden, pick one of these. And Biden still, at the end of the day, the buck does stop with him. The problem is that Joe Biden is not given an expansive array of options to pick from because Joe Biden lacks the capacity to pick from a random array of options. And Joe Biden, through his history going back 50 years, has never liked to do that. Joe Biden is a fool. Joe Biden is a man who is always right. Joe Biden is a man who has never known how to be wrong because Joe Biden likes the humility to understand when he has actually been wrong. To this day, Joe Biden defends the botched, disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. To this day, Joe Biden is convinced we should have divided Iraq up into three parts, even though every single person from Iraq to the United States to every country in between told him it would be a terrible idea. He, Joe Biden, is always right, and everyone else is always wrong. Joe Biden Biden is all of the criticisms of the left towards Donald Trump come home to roost. In one package, Joe Biden is all the arrogance, all of the pride, all of the vanity, all of the cluelessness, and all of the arrogance. And you will note, as I told you, when Donald Trump was president, the Democrats would never be able to acknowledge their own Donald Trump. Joe Biden, I don't think is quite the extent that Donald Trump was as a personality, but he's a raving lunatic idiot who has always made poor decisions and never lives with the consequences of those decisions because he always finds someone else to blame, never admitting it's his problem, his decision, and his fault for the outcome. Now, I want you to have a good outcome with my advertisers, which is why I like Eden Pure and their Thunderstorm air purifier. It eliminates odors. Y'all, I've used this thing in cars when there were smoke odors. It eliminates them. I've used them in hotel rooms when there were smoke odors and when there were just musty odors. It eliminates them. I use it in the kitchen when I fry. It eliminates those odors. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm just works. And you can get 3 of them for less than $200 for your upstairs, your downstairs, your suitcase, your car, your RV, your basement, wherever you need it. You go to EdenPureDeals.com. Eden, like the Garden of Eden, pure as the driven snow. EdenPureDeals.com, and you will see the discount box on the front page, and you put in ERIC3, ERICK3. You will get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms for less than $200. You will save $200, and you'll get free shipping. You get all of this at EdenPureDeals.com. Don't go to EdenPure.com. Go to EdenPureDeals.com and use the discount code ERIC3. Get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms. Yes, it traps the mildew, the mold, the bacteria, the pollen, the dust. Traps all of that. You don't have to get a filter subscription. You just wipe out the electrostatic air filter. It's a metal filter. It static electricity traps the dust, traps the pollen, traps all that stuff. But I don't actually use it as a regular air purifier running it full time. I use it to eliminate odors, and I swear by this thing. It generally eliminates odors, pet litter box odors, smoke odors, musty odors, fry odors, cooking odors. It wipes them out. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3. Don't forget to subscribe to the email. Boy, we've been flooded with emails asking for my opening monologue. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, it's youtube.com/EW Erickson. We will put it up there, and you can also, you'll get it in the email. It'll go out this afternoon to subscribers. You can text the word data to 33777 to subscribe if you like. Let us go back to the phones. Oh, Lewis, you're up. Welcome, Lewis. How are you? I'm glad you called. You're an expert in this field, aren't you?
Yeah, when this happens, Eric, I want people to realize when fuel prices go up, trucking companies make mega bucks due to the fuel surcharge. But not only that, you were talking about when Barack Obama was in office, that was the big solar windmill push. And
Solyndra.
Texas was a big, right. Texas was a big push on that because when you get to West Texas, they got 2 big windmill blades right there before you get into El Paso there. And that was a big deal. It's actually gone back over to the solar panel more than the windmills now. But then again, you still have the taxable gallon thing for each state on IFTA. And the 3 major ones you want to get fuel at is California, Illinois, and Pennsylvania, because that's the higher taxable gallon for the trucking industry. If you get that, you didn't have to buy fuel anywhere else. You wouldn't have to pay a taxable gallon in any other state because everybody else is so low. Mm-hmm. So this is where the trucking industry has the monopoly because they know they're going to be able to get that surcharge. And anytime it comes to a new Green Deal, they have to have the trucking industry to move this stuff because you can only do so much with rail and you can only do so much with sea and the ocean. It all comes down to the trucking industry.
Well, and not only that, so, I drove home last night. I had an event in Atlanta, drove home, and I had to stop and get gas. And my gas, even premium, was under $4. But I noticed at the gas station I was at that diesel was still about $4.60 a gallon. All those trucks are on diesel. I'm kind of stunned that those prices, I mean, they've come down too. They were regularly over $5, even in a place like Georgia. But I mean, these costs add up over time, and they trickle down to food prices and stuff. I'm kind of shocked that we're not thinking about this. Go ahead. You only got about 30 seconds, though.
There's another point to this. When the fuel goes up, 5 cents, that's when we get a penny increase on the surcharge. That's how that plays out.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, look, Lewis, I'm glad you called. I gotta let you go there. For those of you who don't know, Lewis is a truck driver and knows this stuff, but we got a hard break coming up here, so I had to cut him off. When we come back, I will keep taking your phone calls, 877-973-7425. But also, we got other stuff we got to talk about, including the Democrats building their own fake news operation around the country.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.